Bienvenido. Bienvenido. Bienvenido.
Bienvenuto!
Welcome to Ecuador, a megadiversity full of beautiful animals and hot people. But that didn't stop Chevron from dumping billions of gallons of oil into it. It all started in the 1960s when Texaco, now Chevron, made a deal to start drilling for oil in Ecuador. So the issue wasn't the drilling, it was how they got rid of the oil. Typically, when an oil well is drilled, a pit is dug to contain the waste. The steps to properly dispose of this waste are simple. 1. Line the pit so the water doesn't seep into the ground. 2. Re-inject produced water back into the ground below the waterline. And 3. Haul away the oil sludge.
Damn, bitch. They're simple instructions.
Chevron didn't line their pit, and all the oil waste just went directly into the ground. They didn't re-inject the produced water or haul away the oil sludge. In fact, they didn't do anything at all. They just piped their waste directly into the rivers, and they dumped into the river right next to where thousands of people live.
They don't know jack about drilling.
They built over 1,000 of these pits, contaminating an area the size of Rhode Island in a country as big as Nevada. And they spilled 18 billion gallons into the river and waterways.
There's more dead birds in here than Woody Woodpecker's fuck dungeon.
In many of the pits, they built pipes on the sides to take the overflow into the nearby rivers and streams where people were using for their drinking water without telling the people that they were doing this.
Chevron engineers told him that oil was like milk and full of vitamins. He lost 2 children to cancer.
So the public may tend to think, oh, if you see something in the environment, it must mean that it's very bad. When, in fact, people are exposed to hydrocarbons on a daily basis.
Please, stop talking. Your voice is irritating as shit.
The Earth is in danger. Pollution and waste are ruining our planet. There's only one solution for Earth's pollution.
Steven Donziger.
I expected to see pollution. I was shocked by the extent of it. Massive pools of oil, literally thousands of them all over the rainforest. The oil was on their clothes, it was in the air they breathed, it was in the food they ate, it was in the water that they drank.
This place smells like my granny's embalmed asshole.
It was an apocalyptic nightmare. My first trip to Ecuador was in April of 1993. I went down with some lawyers and scientists to investigate reports that Texaco had dumped literally billions of gallons of toxic oil waste into the pristine Amazon rainforest where indigenous groups live. No one really knew what would happen as a result of the trip, but one thing that did happen is those who went on it all committed to trying to do something to address the problem and to help the people, and to hold Texaco, now Chevron, accountable for what looked like a massive human rights problem that was done deliberately.
Sorry, Sponge! The Schlorps are under my protection! Starting now!
Out of that trip, we talked to people who wanted legal representation. These are all unique cultures. The Siona, the Quechua, the Kofan, the Sequoia, the Waorani all have their own languages and their own villages. Some are more farming-oriented, others are more hunting, but all of them were 100% dependent on the forest for their survival.
To the point of whether or not there's any water coming off these pits that is posing a problem to the environment, we've sampled every stream at every inspection. And again, 99% of those samples meet US EPA and WHO drinking water standards.
One more lie out of that shit nozzle you call a mouth, and I'll leave a boot print in your front butt.
Chevron did not want any litigation on the merits of the claims of the Ecuadorians. They wanted to avoid that at all costs. They paid one of their employees, Diego Borja, to try to entrap a judge in a bribery scandal. He taped it through a pen.
Yeah.
This is all the Chevron Texaco case.
You've read all of this?
Ya leído todo usted.
They were constantly filing dozens and dozens of trial motions in like a very short period of time, like an hour, to stop the court from functioning properly.
Es un abogado corrupto de Texaco.
Señor, usted va a responder por sus palabras.
Yo estoy respondiendo, señor. Usted es un abogado corrupto.
Chevron would then file more motions to recuse the judge from the case, and that motion would then go to another judge, and it would delay the trial for 6 months.
Part of Texaco's strategy is to bankrupt it.
I'm Dave O'Reilly, CEO of Chevron. You may not know it, but there's a lot more to this corporation than $200 billion in annual revenue. In Ecuador, there is 1,700 square miles of Chevron toxic waste and cancer. We have dumped over 18 billion gallons of toxic filth in the Amazon, and with over 18 million gallons of oil spilled, we have surpassed the spilling capacity of the Exxon Valdez by millions of gallons. This is the power of toxic energy.
Amazonian residents have sued Chevron for dumping billions of gallons of toxic oil waste into Ecuador's rainforest since the 70s.
Steve Donziger and a team of Ecuadorian lawyers won the largest human rights court judgment in history in a $9.5 billion verdict.
Even though the people in Ecuador won the case, they've yet to receive the first dollar.
Chevron has vowed to appeal, but it's also suggested it won't pay up under any circumstances, calling the ruling, quote, illegitimate and unenforceable.
They basically have concluded that it's cheaper to pay hundreds of lawyers to fight this than to pay the people they harmed. Because once that happens once, the chances of it happening dozens more times increase dramatically, and their whole business model gets destroyed.
And Chevron has literally hired 60 law firms and 2,000 lawyers and spent probably $2 billion trying to attack me.
I am a human rights lawyer, detained in the United States of America on bogus charges.
Are you currently wearing an ankle bracelet, a shackle?
I am. I am wearing an ankle bracelet. It's about the size of a garage door opener. It's been on my ankle since August 6, 2019. I sleep with it. I eat with it. I bathe with it.
Sorry, but you can only reel doll your
Steven Donziger
so long before she needs a friggin' shower.
A federal judge found Donziger guilty of 6 counts of criminal contempt of court after he refused to turn over his computer and cell phone.
The U.S. government, through the federal prosecutor here in New York, declined the case. They refused to prosecute Judge Kaplan's charges. So Judge Kaplan, rather than stop there, he appointed a private corporate law firm to prosecute me. And it turns out this law firm called Seward and Kissel has Chevron as a client. So I'm essentially being criminally prosecuted by a private corporation, in this case Chevron.
You assaulted Steven Donziger.
He sassed me.
Judge Loretta Preska, an advisor to the Conservative Federalist Society, to which Chevron is a major donor, sentenced human rights attorney Steven Donziger to 6 months in prison Friday for misdemeanor contempt of court after he had already spent 787 days under arrest.
So, they're not interested in a jury. They're not interested in due process. They're interested in trying to maneuver and manipulate the system to cause me maximum harm. And that's what they've done. I think this is an example of basically how our court system is really failing the vulnerable. And, it's not that there's personal attack on me, although it manifests that way. It's really, this is an attack on the idea of human rights law.
Yeah.
The idea that indigenous peoples in the rainforest have a right to get into court and hold a U.S. company accountable for a massive human rights violation.
As a scientist, if I found that there was any evidence that people were being exposed to something that could harm their health, or if there was any evidence of an increase in cancer, I would raise the red flag. I would pick up the phone and call the Vice President of Health, Environment, and Safety and let them know about that.
How many times I gotta tell you? Keep your ginger, freckle, gutter DNA out of our superior gene pool!
Who should people be complaining to about this?
Ultimately, what I'm asking is that the Department of Justice take back the private prosecution and prosecute me directly. I want a professional prosecutor, someone who is required by law to adhere to certain ethical standards established by the Department of Justice, first among them to be neutral, to not have a financial interest in a case.
They're trying to change people's lunch. They don't realize it harms people financially, physically, emotionally, and spiritually.
The whole thing has been a total corporate prosecution. The Southern District of New York They refused to prosecute him.
Yes.
The UN has come out and ruled that this is an illegal prosecution, that not only should he be released immediately, but that we should be paying him reparations for what we have done to this man. And instead, now he's spending 6 months in federal prison. For all the media people who pretended during the Trump years that they were so worried about creeping authoritarianism, about the end of our democracy, you don't care about this total corporate takeover of our judicial system?
Yes, we do all have freedom of speech, but at times there are ramifications for the negative that can happen when you're not thinking about others and you're only thinking about yourself.
So-called big media outlets, including the New York Times and all the networks, have totally ignored this story, unfortunately.
The New York Times has ignored it. Wow, there's a shocker. So people don't understand how intertwined big business is with government and the media.
Chevron and the people who they hire as ad people, those people control a whole lot of money whenever it comes to media buys and advertising. Is that part of the factor? I think we'd be lying if we said it wasn't.
Of course.
Yeah.
By the way, if people want to help, can I just mention our website real quick?
Sure.
It's freedonziger.com, one word, and it's spelled Donziger. You can go there and learn more about the case, get articles, and we also have a legal defense fund, which we raise money for to pay the expenses involved in fighting these monsters.
Not twice if Satan's doing you up the butt.
Chevron.
I love it up the butt from Satan, everybody. You rook.
Chevron.
Now hit my theme song.
Look at me now, bitch.
Lick my tacos.
Chevron.
Give those chicks their nuts back. Help!
Dun, 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 dun!
Steven Donziger.
If you like the video, leave a like and subscribe.